Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Sky Lilah Experience. Today we have Sage Miller. Hey, Sage.
Hi.
So I had a podcast earlier, uh, maybe quite a few months ago, or maybe a year ago with Sage about everything that she does. She's a high performance coach that specializes with entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs. The podcast before goes into detail of what she does specifically and how the program of designing someone's life. But today we're going to get a little more into detail of how to get unstuck into momentum as an entrepreneur or an aspiring entrepreneur. Okay, so Sage, I know you mentioned connecting your worth to your work. How does that affect your productivity, or how does it affect your subconscious or your work? How does it affect your life?
Oh my gosh, yeah, this is such a good place to start because I think so many high performers, high achievers feel this way. And I know I've spent years of my life feeling this way. And often people who have a really big vision for their life and they are working towards it and pushing to that vision every single day, it can be really easy for us to start to create this fairly, I believe, unhealthy connection between our work and our sense of worth. And so, what that's looked like for me in the past is when my business and my work is going really well, I feel very worthy and I feel amazing. Or when I'm really busy, I feel really worthy. And then when there's tons of spaciousness in my life, or I'm between projects, or I just need to rest, I stop feeling worthy. And I start to have these voices in my head that are like, you're not doing enough. This person wouldn't be relaxing. Are you even going to accomplish your goals? And so I think that a lot of high performers have this innate drive that is super powerful, right? I like to say it's like a superpower. And the
Mhm.
flip side of that is that drive that can be so effective. Also, for a lot of us, is the reason we're so driven is because it's hard for us to pause because we're hard on ourselves when we do pause, because we feel worthy when we perform. So, in my work with entrepreneurs and high performers in the last couple of years, I've really started to look at how do we start to create new positive associations with your worth and start to help you find your inherent worth separately from anything that you've even done that day.
Mhm.
Would it be helpful for me to give an example on this?
Yes, I was just gonna ask how, like, say somebody's, well, for me, I'm better now, but before when I watched a movie or just relaxed or did anything that I thought unproductive, it was like my whole world was crumbling. How do you actually move through that?
Yeah, this is such a good question. And I think so many people resonate with that. The way you said it, it's exactly that. It's really intense. It feels like our world or our vision of ourselves is crumbling the second we pause. So, one activity I really love to take clients through is if you could think about a best friend of yours or
Mhm.
someone you just absolutely love and adore, and you could think about a couple of the reasons that you love and adore them. Like what just makes them them that you are absolutely obsessed with. Typically, we say things like, oh my God, they're so warm, or they're welcoming, they're loving, they're supportive, they're present, they listen, they're adventurous. And what I like to help people look at is those are all things that have nothing to do with your productivity and your performance. So often we can recognize these inherent qualities in people that we love that just already are before they do anything in that day. So what I
Mhm.
like to help people do is to make a list of how do people that love them see them? Maybe just writing down like 4 qualities that you've been told before that are more so about who you are and less about your ability to perform or do. And then I'll have them just write those down on a sticky note, put it on the mirror in their bathroom, and just read those every night and every morning. And it's just that gentle reminder that you already are all of those wonderful things before you've even accomplished any one thing that day. So it's
Mhm.
kind of just getting us back to the core of who we are as a person and being able to recognize and acknowledge those parts of ourselves before we go out to achieve whatever it is we want to achieve.
Right. So you're rewiring your brain a bit that it's not how much you did that day, but just simply who you are.
Exactly. And really getting into the specifics of like, what are some of those qualities that are just already
Mhm.
inherent to who I am?
Yeah, it's such a minor thing, but it's actually so huge in an entrepreneur's world or somebody who's building their own life. Like I know that bothered me for so many years. Not bothered me, but affected me. I isolated from friends because it was like I'm not worthy. I didn't think that term yet. It was just like I'm not there yet. I don't have
Mhm.
time to hang out yet because I need to build this so I can take them all on a trip. And it was like, Sky,
Yeah.
you're not gonna have any friends by the time you're able to take them on a
Yeah.
trip. You don't
It's
maintain
so
it.
true. It's so true. And I think this is something that we get really caught up in. And this is kind of a question that a lot of entrepreneurs have. And again, just people performing at a high level is this question of, do I kind of block out the world and just build for a few years? Is that realistic? And then reintroduce in my life? Or do I know that it's going to take longer, but do it in a more balanced way?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of us have this sort of tunnel vision focus of let me just build now and then I'll do everything else later. And I'm not going to say people haven't built incredible things by doing that. I think we do have to narrow in our focus to build anything to the moon. However, I think sometimes the things that we place down in the are crucial for our happiness. Or like you said, like if we just kind of block out our friends for 2 years, then we're not going to be very connected to them when we have all this time to spend with them. So I
Mhm.
think it's really this practice of figuring out to what degree am I placing things down and what is the impact that's going to have.
Mhm.
There's this amazing quote about a lot of people just chase success when they're young, and then they end up using the money that they made to buy back their health that they were, not acknowledging, or, like not being good to themselves
So
along that
true.
journey. And then
Yeah.
they're just trying to fix it. So it's like, what can we pull back on that isn't going to be detrimental to our health and happiness?
Yeah, and maintain it instead of swinging the spectrum here and there and
Yeah.
trying to get it back. And it's like, let's just, I did think about that not too long ago, actually. It was like, okay, to have a more balanced life, it might take longer, but I'm also in it for the long run. So I'm going to be doing this forever anyway. So may as well enjoy the whole journey, not just try to get somewhere because the only present, the only thing that truly exists is the present moment. So you may as well enjoy it.
Exactly. And I was listening to a podcast the other day about finance. And I definitely have that tunnel vision mind a little bit more where I'm like, okay, let me just save, 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 build. And then when I get to a certain point, then I'll be more open with spending. Then I'll be more comfortable with doing all of that. And one of the things he said is if you don't enjoy the road to financial success, you won't enjoy the financial success because that muscle
Yeah.
to enjoy, to have pleasure, to have fun has atrophied. Like you haven't been strengthening that muscle. And so I think this is a really fine line with anyone really pushing and building towards something is to be really conscientious of what muscles are like atrophying as we're doing that. And then what can we, like you said, maintain, even if it's not progressing, what can we just maintain in our life while we're building so that we don't have to reboot the whole process once we get where we want to go in that one area of life.
Yeah, it's such a fine. I mean, everyone's so different, so you never know exactly what's the way to do it, but just try to find peace and happiness along the whole journey.
Yeah.
What do you find keeps people stuck, or what is stuck even as an entrepreneur? How does somebody know I'm feeling kind of stuck, or is this normal? What is that? Like, how do you differentiate? Okay, you
Yeah.
might need some support.
Yeah. So I really like this visual. So if you could picture a table and there are dominoes like scattered all over the table, and each domino represents a part of your life. It could be your health, your fitness, your relationships, your career. Each one represents something, right? Maybe as minor as your morning routine. I think a lot of times we know there's a lot of change that needs to happen in our life or that we want to have happen. But when we look at the whole table and we try to conceptualize how we're going to do all of this change, it's so overwhelming that we usually go into freeze and we do nothing, or we don't even know where to begin. And so initially, a lot of my work is helping people recognize that there's actually a sequence to the change that needs to happen in your life, right? So getting each of those dominoes in a row and then helping them laser focus on what is the first domino. So what is the one thing that if you could only pick one area of your life to create change in right now, you know that that's going to impact every other area of your life. or it's going to be the catalyst that makes it easier to create the other change in your life. So
Mhm.
like for me right now, it's my business. And I know that's number one. Yeah, I want to see my friends. I want to get movement in. I want to travel, but the business is my number one right now. And I know that as that first domino falls, everything else in my life is going to have more fluidity and more momentum.
Right.
So I think it's about kind of figuring out what is the one thing right now that's going to positively impact all the other change I want to see.
Yeah, because like the 80-20 rule, 20% of what you do has 80% of the results. So if your business is whatever, wherever it may be, then you do have 5, 6, 7 hours to go play and work out and connect with friends and still have a balanced life.
Yeah.
Very fair. How do you determine if somebody's just so confused or they have so many goals or so many important things in life? It's like, how do you figure out what that priority is?
Yeah. And like you said, it is going to be super different for everyone. I think that's really where the process of coaching comes in, of helping someone go deeper into themselves, helping ask them the right questions so they can really get clear on what do I truly desire. And again, with high achievers, high performers, oftentimes, this is probably going to be hard to hear, but oftentimes they're going down a path that is not actually what they truly desire, right? I've gotten on a consultation call with people and they're exhausting themselves trying to create what they believe is success. But then when I ask them to define success for me, it's all the things in life that they already have. So
Yeah.
it's really about getting clear on what is the end goal? What do I truly want? And what are the pieces that are going to build into that? Maybe I already have elements of success or the things I want in my life, and I need to just enjoy those a little bit more and see those for what they are, and then keep building for where I want to add more in my life. So
Mhm.
it's really a personal process, and it's kind of the science of like figuring out what ingredients, what formula in your life is going to create optimal success and happiness.
Right. Yeah. No, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Um, cool. Okay. So I hear you have a 4 steps to momentum workshop and you've
Yes,
designed these
I
4
do.
steps.
Yes, I do.
What are the 4 steps that we take to get into momentum?
Let's talk about it. Okay, so really having coached people these last couple of years, I've been really passionate about helping people get unstuck, helping people get back into momentum, but also helping people find a version of momentum in their life that is sustainable. I don't
Mm,
know about you, but I've been in seasons where I feel like I'm in momentum, but then I'm completely burnt out afterwards and I need to fully reset. So I got really curious about how do you help people find and sustain momentum in a way that works for them.
I love
So,
that.
step one, which is a lot of what you do too with your work, is helping people audit their life as it stands today. So, we look at all of the different areas of your life and we help you get clear on how am I doing in this category? Again, it could be career, finances, health, relationships, your relationship with yourself. How's it going today? And what is or isn't working? So we get you crystal clear on like snapshot of your life today. And then we get crystal clear on what do I really want in each area? And again, this is sometimes a couple layers deeper than just what do I think I want, but really getting to the root of what does this aspect of your life mean to you? And what would you really love to experience in this area of your life?
Mhm.
Three is actually an elimination process. So we'll look at what are those relationships, projects, tasks that are keeping you stuck in place where you are today. I talk a lot about this idea that equally as important as helping you accelerate with what you're doing is helping you alleviate the weight of whatever it is in your life that's keeping you stuck in place today. So we like to go through an audit and look at is there work that you're not enjoying? Are there friendships that are just really draining you? Like what are the dynamics in your life that are weighing you down so heavily that it's hard to take steps forward and to really hit your stride? And I think that's a part of it that we forget, right? I like the analogy, like it's like if you're rowing a boat, and a lot of people will try to teach you how to row faster, but we also have to look at, are there 50-pound rocks in your boat that don't need to be there anymore, right? And that we can actually start to
Yeah.
alleviate for you And it's funny, like I've seen people go from, I think she was doing, I don't know, maybe like a couple $1,000s a month in her side business to taking that to a 6-figure a month business. And most of our work together was just eliminating all these things in her life that
Mm,
were keeping her stuck and draining her energy so much every single day. So
mm,
this is really, it sounds nice, but it really can, like I've watched it 100x people's income and their results, which is wild to see. And so I think sometimes we just don't give enough credit to the impact of the things that are weighing us down and that are keeping us stuck in place. So that's step 3. And then the fourth bit is creating a blueprint for your success. So really helping people map out the roadmap from, okay, this is where I am, this is where I want to go. What is that journey going to look like? This comes down to habits, beliefs, morning routine, evening routine. Like, how do I spend my time to actually go from where I am to where I want to be?
yeah, it's all the puzzle pieces that you finally got from the first three to make it the
Yes,
sustainable routine. I
exactly.
love that.
Yes.
I like the word elimination. I never thought about it in that sense, but it just reminded me of nutrition and
Mhm.
physical wellness because when you go through a detox, it's super uncomfortable, but the whole intention is to eliminate what no longer like serves you in your body and your cells, but the actual process of it is so uncomfortable. You get sick, you just feel ill, but then once it's all out, you're like a whole new being and life is great and your cells are lighter and everything feels good. So it's true that part might be uncomfortable, but makes you just slingshot forward.
Yeah, that's such a perfect example because we understand why the body would need it.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing in our life. And I think sometimes we don't even recognize how far we've gotten from our ideal way of being in the world or how we want to feel, right? Like if I did a juice cleanse tomorrow, I'd probably feel way better the next day, but I don't even remember what that feels like right now because I'm just doing life, right? I haven't done one in a while. So I think that part can be surprising for people.
Right. How often would you say somebody should sort of do that audit process to check in on themselves of go, okay, what should I take away? What should I add?
Yeah. So it's interesting. Like my coaching process is 6 months long. I think if you're doing this ideally twice a year, I think that's a really great cadence. You can do it quarterly too if you want to. I also think it's easy to get caught up in the prepping and planning and learning and not actually doing, which
Yeah.
is something that I experienced in my past as well. So I want to help people. Let's kind of weed the garden. Let's like plant some seeds and then let's like nourish those and not be like weeding every single second. So we want to like create space, for that thing
Yeah.
to grow that you want to really progress
Yeah.
in.
I think that's such a good point. Actually, the planning process, I heard Dean Graziosi say it the other day, and I've noticed it for myself too. Don't get obsessed with the planning, but get obsessed with the action. And I notice in myself when I start to feel overwhelmed, instead of taking action, I'm like, let me just plan everything. And then I do plan like the whole 6 months, and it helps a little bit, but I found that's actually a pattern of thinking I was being productive in planning, but really I could have been more productive just taking a few actions that I knew I needed to do.
Yes, I do the same exact thing. Not surprisingly, I know
Yeah.
exactly what that is because our brain wants to like organize everything, but that organization feels so good, but it's not actually the forward
Yeah.
momentum. It's just the
Yeah.
like preparing to move.
Yeah. There's a fine balance of planning too, which I didn't think about for the first like 10 years of everything that I was doing. I thought, oh, I'm so productive. And then it's like, okay, actually, there's a better way to this.
Yes.
Okay. So, with your experience coaching others or just in your personal life, growing your business or shifting from your previous business, how did you notice your kind of belief system attachment to your work impact your growth or your
That's a really good
productivity?
question. Yeah, I think that the more I see myself for who I am separately than my business, the less pressure there is. I don't feel like I'm sprinting towards success because it's going to dictate how worthy I believe I am. It's more so like I really like myself, and I am excited to create more freedom, to have more impact, to work with more people, to see what it looks like to take the business to the next level. But I think I enjoy the process more when it's not this like, how much am I allowed to think that I'm worthy, but more, what am I capable of? And
Mhm.
it's interesting because I think a lot of times in the beginning, we feel like detaching the connection from work and worth is going to slow us down because we know, even if we know that connection isn't the healthiest, it's jet fuel, basically. Like it makes you just go. And what's been really interesting is I think when we actually work with people to detach that association between work and worth, sure, you might have a short season where you're slightly less fueled because you just feel inherently worthy, which is a beautiful thing. But I actually think that it sources your work from a deeper place where maybe I feel more creative or there's more flow, there's more ease, right? I think it's inherently who we are that we want to build, we want to create big things. I don't think you're going to just lose that. It's more so that you're able to source from other parts of yourself because you're not like sprinting just to feel worthy every single day.
So true. This past year, I've been practicing experimenting. Can I be as productive or efficient without feeling stressed? Because I think before I used to be like, stress is great, it makes me get so much done. I love it. But my body is stressed. Even though it worked for me, it was still like you too going, then you get into burnout. So it wasn't
Yeah.
sustainable. So I was trying to figure out how can I do this sustainably, and it was like an experiment. I felt the habit of stress coming up and me being like, great. And then thinking, okay, how can I do this in a peaceful state? Can I be as productive? Like, how do I measure if I'm still working? How would you say, like, how do you help somebody identify when that's coming up and then how to halt it or like shift from that? Is it like you were saying, the four, the post-it cards, or like what's the pattern that somebody should shift into to feel more in a like work in a beautiful state?
Yeah. Yeah. I can usually tell when it's coming up for someone because it creates a slightly manic energy when we're doing, right? It's like you wake up and you're like, I gotta go do, and you like immediately feel this need to just go. And I can feel that on people because I've felt it on myself.
Right.
And so the process, yes, it can look like kind of getting to your core of who you are, but also I think sometimes we have these like looming fears of, well, if I can't perform, then I'm not worthy or whatever it is. And I'd like to help people go down that path. Like with a client yesterday, I was like, okay, you have this big fear that you're going to fail. Let's actually explore that reality. Okay, let's say you fail at this. Then what happens? Then what happens? Then what happens? And what is really helpful for our brain to see is that at the end of that road usually is not death. And it sounds really dramatic, but when we're really afraid, it's because our brain is like, oh my gosh, I'm going to die.
Yeah.
So exploring what would that look like? For me, with my first business, I was quite stressed financially. And it took me sitting down and being like, okay, if I run out of money, what would happen?
Mm.
I was like, okay, I'm really grateful that I could probably move back in with my parents for a few months and save some money, keep working on my business. And then I would probably find a new apartment and move back to LA. And once I did it, like, you know what I mean? Once I really
Yeah.
zoomed in and saw that reality, I was like, that doesn't sound that bad. It'd be nice to see my parents for a few months. Like that's okay,
Yeah.
right? It just kind of dissipates the fear a little bit and these overwhelming looming feelings of like what would happen if. So I
Mm.
think it's about exploring what are you really perceiving that potential, you know, scary situation to be, and can we explore that and see what's there for you?
Yeah, that's so funny. It just reminded me, growing up, my mom would always be like, "What are you afraid of?" And I'm like, I don't. She goes, "What's in my hand?" And I'm like, "Nothing." She goes, "Exactly, nothing. Like you're afraid of nothing. It's all in your head." But the enthusiasm behind that example was like, "Okay, you're right. nothing really. Like, what's the worst that can happen? You're most likely not going to die.
Mhm.
I just struggle a little bit. And I think the majority of people have at least somebody they could probably lean on to live with or whatever it might be. Or most people don't even take that many risks to begin with.
Yeah.
I love that aspect of I think of it like falling into a well. It's like, okay, let me dig to the absolute bottom because then
Mhm.
I know I've hit the bottom and there's actually only going up from here. So it's
Mhm.
get quite comfortable. It's like, okay, we're just gonna this darkness is kind of nice because you know you're gonna shoot up just as equally high. The lower you go, the higher you bounce.
Mhm.
How would you find you get out of burnout? When you or how do you recognize you're in burnout and then how do you work through it?
Yeah. I think the recognition is a little bit easier for people because you're not able to perform at your highest. You're not able to focus. And it's sort of this feeling, especially for people who are naturally doers, achievers, it suddenly feels like you're trying to like sledge through molasses. Like it's so much harder to just get out of bed, to feel excited, to do your workday, to accomplish tasks. And then getting out of it, I think that we have to sort of like reintroduce in the work that we want to get done. It's kind of like the domino example again. We can't try to go all cylinders fire again. So again, I like to help people get things in order of importance because what's true is you don't have the fuel to do it all at once right now. So we need to be really intentional with energy conservation and figure out where is your little bit of energy you do have going? What's the one thing in your life again that's going to create more ease? Is it seeing people you love? Is it getting in some light movement every day? Is it just focusing on your work for right now? And so again, it's kind of about like zooming in and narrowing the focus on these few things that you have the energy for and that are going to start to actually give you more energy. Because if
Yeah.
you only have 10% of your energy, you need to pour that into something that's going to give you energy back and use that to build it back up versus draining it. And I think for a lot of us, we might have lifestyles that we enjoy in a lot of ways. They're challenging, they're fun, they push us, but maybe it drains you just like 1% every day. Like it's just like a little bit of a drain or a little bit of a lack.
Mhm.
That over time will erode your energy and will lead to this feeling of burnout.
Mhm.
And I think the other thing I'll say about burnout is a lot of times we have to reconnect to our why. I had to remind myself, what am I even doing all of this work for? Right? Because once you're exhausted, you're like, oh, everything feels hard. I don't really want to do any of it. So why am I even doing this?
Mhm.
Sometimes we have to pick a whole new why. Sometimes we didn't even have a why to begin with. And so there's an important step too of connecting with your purpose, your desires. Again, it's like, what do I really want? And why am I even exerting my energy in any direction?
Mhm. So that is clear to me. I'm all for whys and going deep, deep, deep into whys. But for somebody who this might be a completely new thought,
Mhm.
are there, say, maybe more common examples or patterns of individuals and like patterns of whys, or how do you figure out your why? What kind of questions or how do you go, okay, what am I doing this for? Who's somebody, maybe it's somebody who doesn't even know what they're doing really yet either, but wants to make a change.
Yeah,
Your whole
absolutely.
coaching process, but
Yeah, right. But just to distill it down to like, what is the first step? Because you're right, it sounds really easy. Like, what's your why? And there's a lot to that, especially if you are just starting to explore yourself and get to the root of what you want. So, what I would suggest is sort of like a smaller exercise of what we've talked about is I would write out the major areas of your life. Maybe pick five. You know, if you need an example, you could do your relationship with yourself, your relationship with others, your finances, your career, and then your health and wellness. Those are kind of like a good, and then if you're religious or spiritual, that's another great one. So I would start there, write out where am I at in this area of my life today? And this could just be one or two sentences, just like a snapshot of like, what does this aspect of my world look like? And then I would write out your ideal scenario. Doesn't have to be anything grandiose, but what would I love to see in this area of my life?
Mm.
And then looking at the gap between the two, like that's your why. Your why is your desire to get from where you are to where you want to go. It doesn't have to be one specific thing, but it can more be a pull to get from where you are to where you want to go to experience that highest, most expansive version of your life.
Mhm.
Right. And some people have one area of their life that's the most important. For some people, it's being a mom. For some people, it's their career. And so, if there's one aspect of your life or one pillar that you know is the most important, then it's a little easier to really map out, why am I even doing this? Why does it matter to me? What is the significance of it? And to let that kind of be your fuel.
Mhm. I actually just did that, not your example, but why on a coaching call this morning, and with a 7 steps. So it's like you say, okay, why do you want financial freedom? So I have more money. Okay, why do you want more money? So I have freedom with my time. Okay, why do you want freedom with your time? So I can do what I love and spend time. And it's like you just keep asking why. So I think it is
Mhm.
that simple of like why, getting to the root core of what really drives you.
Mhm. Yes.
Interesting. So when would somebody start working with a coach? How do you know? I mean, it's always beneficial, but say you have no budget for it, but you're like, I'm stuck. I probably need a coach. At what point would somebody go, okay, I should really take this leap?
Yeah, I think it's simply put exactly what you just said. It's like we often can feel when we're stuck. And often it's because we're trying to do too much or the road ahead isn't clear. So we're often stuck because we don't exactly know where to begin with the change we want to see in our life, or we don't even know what change we want to see in our life. So often people come to me when they are at this like sticking point and they know there's change they want to see, but they don't know what steps they need to take. And they are feeling sort of immobile in that moment.
Mhm.
I think those are really great times. Like you said, had people come to me who are already doing really well and they're like, what's the next level? Let's find that too. But more often than not, it's a feeling of I'm stuck right now and I need support and guidance to like get back into action and then get back into momentum. And a lot of times for people too, it's like, I need help figuring out what I really want, right? I'm stuck because I don't exactly know where I need to go and why.
Or there's too many things, and which one do I focus on? So
Yes.
many options. It's like, huh, even for like high performers, I find, say, when I do coaching, sometimes it's lots of people don't know where to go, which is both are just as valid of having an abundance of things you want to do, but then
Yep.
which direction do you go? And having, I don't know anything, which direction do you go?
Yeah, absolutely. Because all of them require us to get deeper with ourselves and to figure out our true priorities and values and the greatest vision for our life, and then to figure out what's going to actually get us there.
Mhm. What do you, I know you already said your business right now is the priority.
Mhm.
How do you evaluate that? Like, what's your thought process behind, okay, if this is thriving, then what else thrives? Like, what are some of the pillars that people can consider, or
Mhm.
that so that they can weigh out and go, well, which one really?
What's first, sort of
Yeah.
a thing. Yeah. This is a great question because as beautiful as this visual of like a line of dominoes that all just fall once you knock the first one down, it's really more so about what is the thing that's going to be the catalyst for the other change that I want to see in my life. So, like for me, as you know, I've worked on a lot of different projects for many years. I've worked with Nike, I do my coaching, I've done events. But my desire right now is to just fully be focused on my coaching. And what that's going to create is so much more time and freedom for travel, for adventure, for all the things that I love. And so I know that that's where my energy and attention needs to go primarily.
Mhm.
Now, once we get to know ourselves, we know the other things that we need, like you said, maintenance to stay happy. So I think you and I are very similar in this way, where it's like, I need to move my body every single day for at least an hour, right? I want to go on a walk too. So there's an aspect of movement that's crucial for me. For me, connection is huge. I gain so much energy from my people. So even if I'm in a big business push, I need to spend my evenings in connection or else I'm going to start to burn out. So I've learned a lot of these aspects of myself now where I can say, yes, I'm in a big focus season, but I know I still need these certain elements to, again, have this momentum be sustainable and to not have it just be something that burns me out, because then we have to start back from square one in terms of rebuilding momentum.
Hmm.
Sort of like my mom and my dad are big backpackers. They absolutely love it. And one of their rules that they learned with backpacking is you eat something every hour, just like a little tiny something. And what they were taught by experts is that if you let your energy go all the way down, it's so much harder to build it back up. But if you just have like a bite or two of something every hour, it's a lot easier to maintain.
Yes.
So when it comes to momentum, I really want people to figure out, what are those seemingly small things that I can do every single day? Like, I think you and I would probably use the example too of fitness. And,
Mhm.
we've talked so much about this, right? Like, you and I love our fitness,
Mm.
but, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think either of us are like tracking every macro. We've never competed. We're not like, but we've been in the gym every day for, I don't
Yeah.
know, 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
And I think we're both like, wow, cool. Like,
I know.
that's
The
pretty cool.
result just happens, but there's not necessarily a goal in fitness. It's just that support for the business really
Yes.
both of us.
And I think that's the perfect example where I know people do look at your physique and they're like, oh my God, give me your workout, give me your meal plan. And the truth is, you've done little things every day for probably 15 years.
Yeah.
And that has built this insane momentum that would now be really hard to change, right?
Yeah.
And so I think we think momentum is like all cylinders go. I have to give everything to this thing. And usually it's like a little bit of these important things every single day over an extended period of time.
That's so accurate, which I sort of was aware, but not really aware. But when I first started my career was in health and fitness, and I knew I didn't want to do that forever. It was just while I was trying to figure out what the next thing was. But I realized later it was like, oh, that was exactly how it was meant to be. So I learned the knowledge and the just whatever I learned in nutrition school and personal training of to maintain my body so that I never sacrifice that aspect of life when the business aspect starts thriving and has been thriving. I'll never like lose it at a later age and then come back up. Okay, so though, what would be the things that you might like fitness, movement, diet, and connection you still maintain while you're focused, say, on business? What would be some things that you go, maybe I'll put off? And then how do you determine, is that like you put it off for a week or a month? Like, do you quarterly categorize? Do you weekly categorize? How do you zoom out and then zoom back in? What are you considering?
Yeah. So for me, a big piece is financially, right? If I'm laser focusing on one business endeavor, it means that I'm not going to be bringing in a lot of money from other areas. And
Mm.
so that means that for me, I'm probably not going to be going to music shows every week, going out to eat all the time, or, traveling every weekend. Would I love to? Absolutely.
Yeah.
But more so, what I would love is to get my business to the point where that's all that I'm doing and that's my whole focus. So I think that what's helpful, everyone is so different with how they like to plan. So for some people, it might be really valuable to do a monthly audit. For some people, that's going to feel really overwhelming and it's just not going to happen. So what I'm a bigger fan of is choosing a date in the future that gets to be your reevaluation date. So like for me right now, I'm like, okay, I know I want to do this 3-month super focused sprint on my business. At the end of, let's say, September, I'm going to check back in and I'm going to really audit, how's that going? Do I still want to be in this kind of a sprint? Do I want to take on any other projects? What momentum can I see? And can I see where that's going to go and extrapolate to if I keep giving it this? Like, I
Mhm.
try to kind of pick a date in the future. And then that is my reevaluation date. And that helps me a little bit more, like, because I know the container, but I'm not having to reevaluate too frequently.
Yeah, or you don't like you don't reevaluate sooner than you need to because you've already
Yeah.
set a date. So true. Dates and deadlines work for everything.
It's so helpful. Yeah, because it kind of just soothes the mind. It's like, we're going to revisit that at the end of September. And for now, we're just in the zone.
Stay committed. And it's so true. I think for me, I noticed I didn't value connection as much because my mindset was like, well, I don't want to just go for dinner. I want to take them on a week around a yacht on the Greek islands, and like I
Yeah.
can't do that yet. Um, so I definitely isolated a bit, but then I realized too, or say I have a client who's a fairly new entrepreneur and she struggles with connection to her current friend group. Like I have you now and I absolutely adore you, and we have our entrepreneur ladies where I never feel like, oh, I'm not doing enough when I'm with you guys, because we can still be working but connecting. And yeah, sometimes I do just connect and that's great too, but I feel like I can connect more when it's with people who I don't need to give 100% energy to, and maybe we're together for 6 hours and chatting for 2 and then working for 4. How would you suggest to somebody who's like stepping into this new world, but their friends might be where they're stepping away from? How do you navigate the friendship world of being connected but shifting into your new version of yourself?
Yeah. This is such a good question. And I feel like we're often going through metamorphosis. We're often going through this like shifting and evolving, whether it's with community, with ourselves. There's always some sort of evolution, something shedding, something being introduced in. And so what I would offer in the beginning is you need to be filling your mind with those new beliefs, with that new way of thinking about the world, what's possible. For me, a lot of times it's audiobooks, it's listening to podcasts, right? If I'm going to create spaciousness from certain relationships, certain people, I need to be filling my mind with those beliefs that I'm trying to enforce and with those other ways of being in the world. And then what I would offer too is as you're growing into that person, you're becoming that version of yourself who's going to attract totally different people into your life, is to spend time in the places that the people you want to become spend time,
Mhm.
right? So, like, I am not a multi-millionaire yet, but I love to work from this super fancy hotel that's pretty close to me in Santa Monica, because there is a frequency in that space of success. You know, it's a lot of people who have achieved a lot in their lives. They're able to spend time there. So I might just go and get a coffee, but even just working in that space, or the people that I meet as I'm working there are at a totally different kind of frequency than maybe if I were to work at somewhere else that just doesn't have that same kind of energy to it.
So true. When I first moved to London, there's a beautiful gym and it's very expensive at this stage in my life. But the gym is my happy place. And my dad was like, go to the most expensive gym because you are going to meet people who are not there just because they need to be there. They want to be there. They're committed to being there. And they're most likely committed to other things in their life as well. So it's like
Mm.
you do sort of have to step up before you feel maybe completely at home, and then it becomes home where you just meet those people.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about losing friends? Like, what would you say? Because I know it's shifted from being unstuck, but I've just noticed this come up a lot lately for people around me where they're not feeling connected. Do you think
Yeah.
it's okay to have that like space, or for you, I know you really need connection.
Mhm.
If you're someone who really, I'm quite okay like being alone
Yeah.
at the time, so
Yeah.
it didn't really impact. I after realized, okay, and I looked at like socializing as a to-do list and tasks, and it was like, this is for your mental health. Like you go to the gym, have at least one friend date a week, and I had to like check it off because that's just the way I had to justify it to myself that it was for my health. um but if you're somebody who really craves connection but you're not connecting,
Mhm.
how do you like do you how do you find those new people, or is it just a time that you're got to have faith that you're stepping up? What
Yeah.
just
This is such a good question. I think you know that I've been feeling this a lot recently. And so it is, it's a mix of things. And I feel like we're always in this process. And I am so envious of you. Sometimes I'm like, oh, it would be so much easier if I were just a little bit more introverted and I didn't feel like I needed to go have this connection every single day. Couple of things I would say. One is, yes, I've taken this as a season of my life that for whatever reason, I'm meant to be a little bit more solo.
Mm,
Maybe I'm not seeing people every single day, which is personally what I would like to do. Two is appreciating people for what they bring into your life. So
mm,
not expecting everyone to need to be this like high performing visionary entrepreneur. That could be what I want. But instead of expecting people to match that energy or even want to talk about those things, can I just appreciate like the more I started appreciating my friends for what they brought into my life, the more I was able to just have so much love for that relationship and that dynamic for what it is versus what it isn't. And so
right,
I have friends where I'm like, let's just go have fun, right? They don't even know that much about what I do. And that's
right.
fun, but they're
So
really
true.
fun and they're wonderful and we laugh and we enjoy. So I think there's a balance between spending time on your own, recognizing what people bring into your life, and then stepping into that version of yourself and putting yourself out there, whether it's going to those elevated places in your city, going to networking events or places where you can intentionally meet more people.
Mhm,
Um, and it's kind of, for me, it's been a balance of those three things, I would say.
mm,
One of the beliefs or like ways of going through this process that I really loved is to not necessarily cut people out, but just to pull back on the energy that you're pouring into the relationships that no longer really fuel you or inspire you.
mhm.
So for me, I'm typically not going to be like, you're cut, you know, you're out
Yeah,
of my life. But if we're just in different seasons, we're focusing on different things, that's okay. I just might not be pouring fuel into that dynamic as much. And when it flows, and that's great. But that really helped me know how to like take my own space without it being this like definitive hard chop.
yeah, it's so true. I think that is what maybe scares people sometimes. They think, oh, we're not the same person anymore, like we can't be friends, or this is bad for me, or like I don't know. But I've noticed too over my years of going in and out of friendships, not ever out, but just going in different directions and needing to do
Yeah.
different things, I've
Yeah.
never lost any friends. It's always just I might see them once a year for a birthday and they're like family, not necessarily my day-to-day
Mm,
check-in friends on how's life. Here's the update on my life, but it's more
mm,
like so I guess that like level of expectation from that friendship, like you're saying, is what sort of category do they fall under?
yeah.
Just talking about this because I've a few clients lately we've been talking about that. I'm like, I went through that like 10 years ago, so I'm fine now. But it was scary at the beginning when you're like, oh my God, I'm alone. Now
Mhm.
it's funny you say you wish you were a little more introverted. I've been doing a meditation the other week and I was trying to see if I could change my belief system that I'm more of an extrovert so I could be fueled by others because I was like, I would like to get out more. It just takes so much
Yeah.
energy from me.
Yeah.
How do you balance your output energy? And this could be friends or work, or like, how do you balance even throughout your day, your output versus your input? Like, how do you organize your day and go, okay, this is fueling me or this is going
Yeah.
out? What do you
Yeah.
consider?
Love that. So I think I figured out, and again, like, you know, this takes time, this takes process, takes practice, but I figured out what pulls my energy versus what fuels me for the most part. So I'll try to bookend my days with things that are super fueling. So like mornings are movement, maybe meditation or some journaling. End of the day is usually connection time. And I think what's beautiful about being an entrepreneur is you have a little more choice. Obviously, for someone listening to this in a 9 to 5, they might be like, well, yeah, my work is draining, but I don't have a choice necessarily within this job.
Mhm.
Right. And so it's more so about, again, auditing. Maybe you could make a list of the main things you do every day. And then, you know, does it feel like it charges you or does it feel like it drains you? And
Mhm.
when you look at, okay, am I having a net positive or a net negative? Am I going to bed just like, wow, that was amazing? Or am I going to bed like exhausted and kind of dreading that alarm clock in the morning and doing it all again? You
Mhm.
know, that really tells you how much you are getting energized throughout the day versus how much you're being drained. So really all of this is a process of self-discovery. It's a process of what brings me joy, what works for me, what doesn't. But I think just a simple start is like writing out what you're doing. And maybe you could attach a number of hours to that too, right? Maybe your mornings really fuel you, but then your work days are 10 hours long. So that's it could be a huge drain. And then you need something really fueling at the end of the day as well. So
Mhm.
just kind of looking at like, what are the pieces and what is the impact that each piece is having? And then we'll know what else can we introduce. Maybe you've just been like flowing and chilling, and we actually want to introduce a little more
Mhm.
things that take your energy, but that are going to propel your life forward. It's kind of a balancing act.
So true. Ugh, so much more to talk about. But
I know.
if well, one, for a consultation, how can people find you? And then two, what can they expect in that consultation, or why would they want to do it?
Yeah, absolutely. So Instagram, easy. It's Life by Sage with a period in between each word. And then I can share the link with you for a consultation if that would be helpful. It's also
Yeah.
linked in my Instagram, but I'll share it with you so that
Okay,
people can
perfect.
access it if they want. And the consultation is a little like sampling of what we've talked about today. I really like to use this time to help people audit their life as it stands today. So we get them crystal clear on what's working, what isn't, and where would you be really excited to land 6 months from now. So we do some goal setting. We do some, again, like getting you into the deeper layers and the desire. And we start to create that roadmap of what is in between where I am and where I really want to go. And then that roadmap is the process for our work together. So once we have all of that clear, then we look at, okay, would this be the right coaching partnership? And I help answer any questions they might have about if the process, the timing is right for them.
Amazing. Thank you. Okay, I'll put that link in the description.
Yeah,
I know I've
absolutely.
asked before, but maybe there's a new quote. Is there a quote that you live by or you would sort of share with an aspiring entrepreneur, or
Mm,
words of advice? Just a little snippet that they can repeat in their mind.
yeah, there's so many good ones. Hmm.
Or is there a mantra that you say to yourself every day?
Yeah. There's a quote, maybe you know who this is from. I always forget who this is by, but the basic idea is there are two ways to look at everything in life. One is as if everything is a burden, and one is as if everything is a gift. And that always really helps me because I feel like we don't always know the impact of something that's happening today and what that's going to turn out like or look like. And so I think that what really helps me is recognizing that I don't know what is gifting me versus challenging me. But if I try to see it all as growth potential and as a benefit, then it just really makes the journey a lot more fun.
Yeah, it's like the he who says he can't and he who says he can are both usually right. Or it's like
Yes.
different
Yes.
perspective.
Exactly. Yeah, it's exactly that. Yeah. And I just want to say thank you so much for having me. I'm so in love with obviously you, your show, everything you're creating. So thank you. Of
Okay. Thank you so much for taking the time to share your knowledge and expertise and
course.
your energy with me. Sage and I have so many of these chats, and I'm like, we should really support it because the world needs to hear what this woman has to say. So
Well,
thank you for making time. I love you.
thank you. I love you too.